Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video. I'm going to be doing one of my usual trade scenario videos today, this time with the Philadelphia 76ers. I want to make this video because I feel like the Sixers are a team that has a lot of talent, but it just doesn't all mesh correctly, so I think that they need to trade at least somebody to switch up the chemistry, bring in new parts that maybe fit better, and get themselves on the winning track. They're already a winning team, but I feel like they could have different pieces to make their team a more seamless fit in general. And so I'll be running down trades to facilitate that. And I mainly based all these trades around sending out Joel Embiid to different places because I think he would fetch the most in return compared to Ben Simmons. So most of these packages are centered around Joel Embiid, and I'll be talking about each team's perspective of why they do the trade. So first off, I have a trade between the 76ers and the Miami Heat. And I should also note for this trade, the Heat are going to have a lot of cap space coming up, so they can make this trade work pretty easily. I have the Heat getting Joel Embiid, and I have the Sixers getting Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, and Duncan Robinson. So from the 76ers perspective, they get a lot of really complementary role players, and I feel like their depth has been really lacking this year and ever since really the Jimmy Butler trade. So with this trade, you get a core that would probably look like your starting lineup featuring probably Ben Simmons, Tyler Hero, Josh Richardson, Duncan Robinson, and Al Horford, with a bench of Kendrick Nunn, Matisse Thybulle, Mike Scott, and um, probably who else would be? Oh, Tobias Harris would probably be in the starting lineup over Duncan Robinson. So you'd have um, your starting lineup would probably be Simmons, Hero, Richardson, Harris, and Horford, with Mike Scott, Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson as your main bench guys. I feel like that gives them a lot more depth in shooting, and they really need a lot more shooting around Simmons, so that clears up the court for him. As for the Heat, they get a second star to pair with Butler, and I think for me, people might say like, well, Bam Adebayo is really a center, but he's played some forward. He's played next to Myers Leonard a lot, so I think he could play next to Embiid. And you could have a pretty effective starting lineup of something like, let's say they re-sign Dragic to a cheaper deal in the offseason. You could have a starting lineup of like Dragic, Butler. You could then have Jay Crowder, Bam, and Joel, with a bench of like Kelly Olynyk, um, Andre Iguodala, and whoever you decide to fill in at the other spots. But that's a pretty solid starting lineup and a few guys off the bench. And I think that what they really need is just like an alpha dog on offense. And I don't really think that Jimmy Butler is that, but I think that Embiid could be that. My next trade is Embiid going to the Magic for Vucevic, Wesley, Awundu, and this year's a first round pick, either this year or next year's or sometime down the road. Why do I think this trade works? Well, for the 76ers, they get a center who can provide, you know, 80% of what Embiid does. He can provide basically everything Embiid does on offense, but the only thing you're lacking is the defense. But I think offensively, he actually works quite a bit better in that he's a lot more comfortable stepping out and taking jump shots and clearing up the lane for Simmons. I think he's a much better spacer than Embiid is, and more versatile as far as that goes. And so your starting lineup for this team probably looks basically the exact same, except swap out Vucevic for Embiid, and and then also just to pad losing some of Embiid's talent, you get a first round pick, and then Awundu is cap filler. Um, and then as for the Magic, you you lose a future asset in the first round pick, but you basically effectively replace Vucevic with Embiid, who is overall a better player offensively. They're about the same, but defensively, Embiid's quite a bit better. He's younger. He has more upside. And I think what this team again needs is a really strong alpha dog like the Heat. And so that's why I can see them taking on Embiid. Next trade I have is between the Kings and the 76ers, and I have Embiid going to the Kings, and I have Bagley, Bogdanovich, and Alex Len going to the 76ers. So Alex Len is really just throw in to make the salaries work, but Bogdanovich is going to be a free agent, and I think the 76ers would trade for him or like do a sign and trade for him, and then also acquire Bagley and Len. So why do they take Len? Basically to be their backup center. They take Bagley as a promising, I think, 21-year-old who has a ton of upside and just has a lot left to show, I think, and a lot of room to improve and to grow as a player. So I think he's a really nice young person to pair with Simmons. And then also Bogdanovich is a really good wing as far as like being a space guy who can basically be what um, a blend of what Marco Bellinelli and JJ Redick were bringing to this team, but younger and a little bit more talented as far as creating offense. So you'd have a starting lineup of something like probably Simmons, Bogdanovich. Then you'd have um, why am I blanking? Simmons, Bogdanovich, Josh Richardson, Harris, and Al Horford with a bench of Alex Len, Mike Scott, Matisse Thybulle, and Marvin Bagley. So again, a little bit more depth to this team and a guy who can space the floor a little bit better as well. Next trade I have is Joel Embiid going to the Portland Trailblazers for CJ McCollum, and I think this may be the trade that I think is the most beneficial for both sides in that I have the Sixers getting the Blazers first rounder this year, which will be a lottery pick along with CJ. And so for the 76ers, you get CJ, who is a guy who can create his own shot. He's also a very good shooter, so he can provide you a lot more spacing. And you get a first round pick, which will be a lottery pick this year, so that's much more incentive than the Blazers' first round pick would normally be. And then I think as far as like people not thinking that that's maybe a good enough package, I think Joel Embiid has become a little bit of an overrated player in that this year he's giving you good defense, but on offense he's really just like he's like 22 and 10 on average efficiency, which I know people may point to like, oh, injury problems and stuff like that. That's why his numbers are low, but like you can't just keep saying injury problems when it's like an every year thing. Like Joel Embiid has flaws to his game, and maybe they're outside of his own control and that he gets injured a lot, but a lot of that can come down to like conditioning too. Like if he was perfectly conditioned all the time, injuries wouldn't happen nearly as frequently, and so I think um, for the 76ers, just getting CJ might be just like a relief in general, and that they get away from a lot of the drama that Embiid brings to the team. CJ is just a quiet dude who can give you the 20 to 22 a night on really good shooting. Um, their starting lineup after this trade would be like Simmons, CJ, Richardson, Harris, and Horford, and that lineup has a way better spacing than the other lineup with Embiid. And as for the Blazers, they get Embiid, who I think is really the second All-Star in his prime running mate um, that Dame really needs. CJ's been a good complement to Dame, but I think Dame really needs like another like perennial All NBA team kind of player to succeed, and I think Embiid is that. And I think when you look at their lineup after this, let's say that we'd have Hassan Whiteside leaving in the offseason, so the Blazers could conceivably try and get some free agents in there. Like, who knows, maybe like a DeMar DeRozan even. He could be a nice compliment because they need a wing scorer, I think. But either way, if you bring in like let's say DeRozan with 25 million or 28 million or something, which wouldn't be a great move, and that's a lot of money, but if so, their lineup could be something like Dame, Anthony Simons, DeRozan. Um, let's see here, power forward probably Zach Collins because they wouldn't bring back Carmelo, and then Joel Embiid, and then a bench of something like Rodney Hood and I guess Trevor Ariza is technically on the team still, so Trevor Ariza, and I don't really. Maybe they'd start DeRozan at shooting guard and bring in Ariza to start and bring in Simons off the bench. But either way, that's a much better lineup I think than what they had previously. Basically, would you rather spend max money on like Embiid and DeRozan or on CJ and Hassan Whiteside? I'd rather spend it on Embiid and DeRozan, I guess, for this particular team. And let's see here, I got two more. Next one is Embiid to the Nets. And this is a pretty big haul, and I think a pretty unlikely scenario, but I couldn't really make up an even trade very well. Um, but I have the Nets getting just Joel, and the Sixers getting Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Joe Harris on a sign and trade. And this is with the caveat that they'd assume that Joe Harris wouldn't re-sign with the Nets, so they're like, well, we might as well just send him off in a package then. And at first you might be saying that's a huge trade package for Joel Embiid, but hear me out. Let's consider that Joe Harris is essentially a free agent signing for the Sixers in this trade. Like he's a sign and trade. So really, it's like Dinwiddie and Jarrett Allen for Joel Embiid. And I think this might be like addition by subtraction for the Nets in that like Dinwiddie's good, but when Kyrie and Durant come back, his shots are gonna go way down. And he looks really good now as a guy who averages 22 and gets the most shots on the team. But when he goes from 18 shots a night to, I don't know, 9 shots a night, will he be as valuable of a player? He'll basically be a guy whose thing is instant offense, but he's giving you 13 points instead of 18 or 20 points. And I think like what I'm really getting at is that I think his skill set is duplicative. It's duplicative of what Kyrie and Karis LeVert already bring to the table, and so it's kind of like there's just too many chefs in the kitchen. And so I guess my point being, would you rather have a like your death lineup or like your go-to lineup? Would you rather have it be Kyrie, Dinwiddie, LeVert, Durant, and Jarrett Allen, or would you rather have it be Kyrie, LeVert, Durant, um, insert power forward, maybe Torian Prince and Embiid. I think I would actually rather have the second lineup because Embiid is much more of a low post presence defensively than Jared Allen is right now, and I think he also brings a lot more to the table offensively, and you have to really respect him a lot more than you do Allen on offense. So I think he just helps finish off a three-headed monster. And plus, I'd love to see the dramatics of Embiid with Kyrie and Durant. That'd be a very chaotic threesome. Okay, and then the last trade I have here is a big one. It's a three-team deal. I have Embiid going to the Warriors. I have the Warriors sending Eric Paschall, Andrew Wiggins, their first-round pick this year, and that Timberwolves first-round pick next year to the Trailblazers. Also, I have Philly sending Matisse Thybulle to the Trailblazers, and then I have the Blazers sending Dame Time to Philly. So to review, Blazers get Wiggins, Paschall, a lottery pick this year, likely a lottery pick next year, also Matisse Thybulle. The 76ers get Dame Time, and the Warriors get Embiid. So why does this make sense for each team? Well, for the Trailblazers, it's the hardest one to sell because they they would basically be accepting a rebuild at this point. But this is a pretty good package for a rebuild. Like, okay, 2 lottery picks. The Warriors would be like a top 5 pick this year. Next year, you're getting Timberwolves pick, which unless they make the playoffs, which I don't know if that's super likely, is a lottery pick. They'll have their own lottery pick this year from just not making the playoffs. You get Wiggins, who's a nice young wing scorer. He's 25 still, I believe. You get Eric Paschall, who's like 23 and a pretty good like sixth man type. Matisse Thybulle is a really good wing defender. So the Blazers starting lineup after this probably looks like Anthony Simons at the point, CJ at the 2, Wiggins at the 3, Paschall at the 4, and let's say they re-sign Hassan Whiteside at the 5, or more likely Nurkic, I should say. So you got Simons, CJ, Wiggins, Paschall, Nurkic, and then your bench is like um, Trevor Ariza, Zach Collins, Rodney Hood, and then you got the Matisse Thybulle off the bench, and then the 2 lottery picks that would be forthcoming. So a decent package for a superstar to get in return. Lots of young assets. For the Sixers, you obviously get a really good player in replacing Embiid and Thybulle. I think that Dame is worth both those dudes. You'd probably start him at the point, but Simmons would really run the point. It would be very similar to like Kyrie and LeBron, where like Kyrie was listed as the point guard, but really LeBron was running the point. Kyrie was just guarding the point guard on the other end. Um, So basically, Simmons would be point forward, Dame would be lining up at point guard. Their starting lineup would look something like Dame, Josh Richardson, Ben Simmons, um, Harris, and Horford, and then the bench, same guys like Alec Burks, Mike Scott, Korkmaz, same, basically same exact team, just sub out Embiid in the starting lineup for Dame, and then Matisse Thybulle isn't coming off the bench anymore. And then for the Warriors, I think that like all these young assets and everything would be worth it to get Joel Embiid. And really, it's essentially you're ending up trading what they got for Durant was basically D'Angelo Russell. And what they got for Russell was essentially the lottery pick from Minnesota and Wiggins. And what they got from having this bad season was that lottery pick this year and Eric Paschall, who came up from the G League and surprised everybody. So they're basically, in essence, trading this bad season and Durant for Joel Embiid. And considering Durant was leaving in free agency, getting Joel Embiid back for him would be a pretty good trade for them. He'd also give something to them that they've never had, which is a low post presence. Not only would he be bringing better defense than the Bogut era, but he'd also be bringing a potent offense as well. And your starting lineup for this team would look something like Steph, Clay, insert bargain bin small forward off the free agency market, along with Draymond and Joel. So I think it works out pretty well for them. There you have it, guys. Those are my 6 trades for Joel Embiid to improve the Sixers and basically to just shake things up and move forward with this team rather than staying in place. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.